Right, folks, this is a new podcast from the two Mikes, and I'm going to give you old energy boy, MG, to introduce it.
Yeah, we've edited out all the nonsense from Mike Porky Perry, so it might be a bit shorter than usual.
Ha, 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 ha. I did a bit of research to find out, the history of traffic wardens and have they always been so demonic and all that.
What did you have for dinner?
I had a beef butty.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two Mikes. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham, and it's time to say a very good morning for the first time this week to Mr. Parry. Very good morning, Mr. Parry.
A very good morning to you as well, Mike. What a scintillating weekend.
It really was.
Let me just tell you about Everton in a minute, of course, and the trip to Loftus Road. Yes. The one you missed, of course.
Yes, well, we will talk about that later, because I'm keen to hear whether or not you gave my excuses in the proper manner.
Well, there were no excuses. The point is you were invited, you didn't turn up, you snubbed the
So
the
you didn't say
hosts.
to the guy that you hadn't actually invited or told me you were going to ask for an invitation for me?
I didn't.
You didn't go into the detail?
I didn't go into any detail at all. I didn't want to obfuscate the obvious.
That's unusual for you.
People had to draw their own conclusions,
really?
Didn't they? But
so you've ruined my reputation at Loftus Road.
No, you never had a reputation at Loftus Road, pal. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I did. That used to be my local football club when I went to school. I went to school literally less than a mile from there.
Well, it was an opportunity for you to come and make a reputation, but that was beyond you, I'm afraid, so you didn't do that. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, what I was going to say to you was, on the Stephen Gerrard incident, right? Now, I, as a manager, would never, ever, ever have allowed that to happen.
No.
Now,
I do blame Brendan Rodgers. I think that's correct.
Well, as you know, I have been an observer, some would say a student of psychology.
Have you?
For 2 or 3 decades, right? And psychologically, I knew
some would
exactly.
say a patient.
So I'm going to ignore that, because if you can't take this seriously, there's little point in me being in this studio to try and debate these very
important issues. You don't want me to start taking
this
seriously, surely?
What I'm saying is this. Psychologically, it was absolutely apparent that as this was Stephen Gerrard's last ever game against Manchester United, as it is his last season, as he had a lot to make up for because of that terrible slip the year before against Chelsea, he was so desperate to get on that pitch and do something.
Fired up wasn't the word, was it?
Completely fired up, absolutely right. Out of control, some would say.
Some said he was down at the Manchester United fans' end when he was warming up, holding up 5 fingers, to say five trophies and all this.
All sorts of things, 5 European Cups and all that kind of stuff. And so when he got on, first thing he did was he decided nobody was actually putting the boot in enough on Manchester United. Yeah. Not, by the way, in a way that contravened the rules at that stage, but, let's show him a bit of metal. Let's show him who's in charge. So he comes on and he gets one crunching tackle in, follows that up with the stamp,
to a huge cheer, by the way, from the crowd.
To a huge cheer, absolutely. Follows it up with a stamp, and he's off again.
Right.
Now, you see, if I was Brendan Rodgers, psychologically, I would have played it a different way.
Right. What would you have done?
Well, I wouldn't have put him in the squad at all.
Really?
I'd have either started him for the beginning of the game.
Well, I think that would have made more sense.
Or not put him in the squad at all, because you know why? Stephen Gerrard was very, very...
You're all right.
Excuse me.
You're going to make it through the show?
Yeah, I'm making it through the show, yeah. Stephen Gerrard was very, very resentful, in my view, of the fact that he'd been held off the pitch for at least 45 minutes.
I've been saying for a while.
And then when he came on, he wanted to say, right, you should have had me on from the start. I'm going to show you what I can do.
Well, I've been saying for a while that I think he fell out with Brendan Rodgers quite some time ago, and we've seen that
fell out in the incident involved Real Madrid.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that was I think that was the final straw. Yeah. But he also fell out, I think, because he didn't feel that he was being given the correct sort of offer, shall we say, to stay on at Liverpool for another season.
He wasn't being given enough adoration or adulation for what he'd done over the years.
He did not want to leave Liverpool. No. He did not want to go and play his football in LA for MLS, because he doesn't think he's down in that level yet. Yeah. And I think he's got a lot of resentment sort of built up about Brendan Rodgers.
I totally agree.
And he went out to make that point as well.
But Brendan Rodgers should have been able to see that. He should have been able to see that, this man was actually a simmering volcano. Yeah. And the volcano suddenly erupted, and bump, it's all gone terribly wrong. The guy I really feel sorry for is Stephen Gerrard, because, in a glorious career as a one-club man, probably,
having never won the Premier League.
Exactly. In John Terry, probably the last ever one-team men in the history of this game, because the way it all oscillates now. But to have his career remembered for the 2 things at the end of it, the Chelsea slip and now the the stamp against Manchester United. It's a bit of a cruelty, really.
Well, it is really, because he's doing himself a disservice.
I mean, I felt so sorry for him afterwards when he came out. The only thing he could do was apologise. I've apologised to my teammates, apologised to the manager, apologised to the fans. What a miserable,
if he's ended up costing them...
end to his career.
Now, it might be harsh to say he cost them the Premier League title last season because of that slip, but you can take that view. It might also be harsh to say he will have cost them now a place in the Champions League. That's a massive cost to Liverpool Football Club, which he loves.
Last season, he would have got sympathy for the slip. Anybody could slip. Yeah. I mean, I read some new theories, because I'm always exploring science, last week about a new pair of boots that's going to be made soon for people who want to go fell walking this country, which will have broken...
Fell walking?
I think I've told you about it. Broken glass on the soles.
Oh, yeah? No, you've never told me about it.
Yes.
What, for better grip?
For better grip, and you can't fall over.
It sounds a bit dangerous to put in your bag, though, doesn't it? We put your hand in the bag to get something, you crack your hand on broken glass.
No, not at all. The glass is splintered so finely, it's thinner than sugar.
Oh, is it? Right,
and what they do is they coat the soles of your shoes with it, right? And so when you're going up a grassy bank or something like that, it actually grips it brilliantly.
Right. Okay.
It's been tested. Now, you should put those...
Do they do them with those little studs that you like on, like the ones that you bought from Nike?
No. No, they don't. No, I don't like the studs. I'm taking those back.
Did you ever take those back yet?
I have taken them back.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I've still got them.
Well, you haven't taken them back yet?
I have taken them back, but I couldn't find another pair I wanted to exchange them for because they're all multicoloured. And I don't like multicoloured.
Surely if you took them back, you don't have them anymore.
I do have them. I went back into the shop and I said, look, I made a mistake. These studs, I want to change them, please. And then as I was walking around, I must have an all-black pair. Yeah. I can't stand multicoloured trainers.
They don't make a black pair without studs?
No. Well, I couldn't find a black pair without studs. So I said to them, look, I've got a problem here. And they said, well, if you come back next week, might have some black ones without studs.
Can't they just give you a store credit and you give them back?
Well, I don't want to do that.
Why not?
I want to keep them in my possession in case I decide to give them away to somebody. I'm going to find out what size shoe our producer's got. Maybe he would want them. He's a younger man than me.
Well, after a while, though, you've outstayed the time by which you can bring them back, won't you?
No, I don't think so. I think they're pretty lenient about
30 days or something.
Is it 30 days?
Well, it might be.
Oh, dear. Well, I'm going to have to check that. Anyway, I'm going down to Portsmouth this week on a special mission.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll try and do it then. But getting back to Stevie G, so he slipped because he didn't have the old glass on the bottom of his football boots, which I understand they're going to introduce, right? So sympathy for that, but no sympathy for the stamp.
No.
The stamp was just a rush of blood and outrage,
ridiculous.
A petulant moment,
and
a
could
silly
have been very
gesture.
dangerous.
Could have been dangerous. And on top of all that, Skirtle's now got himself a 3-match ban as well.
Well, the whole afternoon was a disaster.
For replicating what he'd just seen his captain do.
And if it wasn't for Balotelli being held back by the fans, he would have probably been red carded as well.
He got stuck in as well. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It was an absolutely extraordinary game, but as you say, a fantastic weekend of sport. And I've got lots and lots to talk to you about. We've also got something going on.
Do you think
I'll
be interested in what you've got to talk about?
Yeah, you will be.
Well,
because I've got lots of new things to tell you.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
well, you've never told me anything new for about 6 weeks.
No, you just don't remember it.
That'll be quite interesting.
You just don't remember it.
No, I remember everything, mate. You don't remember
the memory of... This is Talk Sport Extra Time. We are the two mics, and of course there will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on this morning, probably about 7 hours or so from now. I wanted to ask you, because I haven't seen you since Friday morning when you went off into the night.
Yes.
In the early hours of Friday morning. Did you see the eclipse? Did you get anywhere where you could see it?
It didn't happen where I was.
No.
I was in Stockbroker Belt, and I stood out in what's left of my roof garden.
Did you?
Yes, and waited for the world to go dark, and it never happened.
Did it never even go dark?
No, didn't even go dark.
It was very cloudy where I was in Sussex, and it kind of got dark. I'll tell you what happened, which was weird, was all the birds started behaving very strangely.
Well, they would, wouldn't they? I think the light's been taken away.
Yeah, but it wasn't so much like that. It was like this kind of eerie calm. And they started kind of making a lot of noise, and then they just went very quiet. Yeah. And you couldn't see any birds flying around. My problem was, and this is what I was going to tell you about, which you might not have known, was that I had an unfortunate experience with a dog, because normally I was trying to decide whether to stay up and watch the eclipse, because it was night between 9:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10, something like that, where I would normally be asleep. But unfortunately I couldn't go to sleep because the dog was sick.
Right.
I'm afraid. And,
what's wrong with the dog? You've been mistreating the dog again?
No, I hadn't been mistreating him, no, but he was, for some reason, he just was throwing up, and, normally that happens and it's over and it's done, but he just kept doing it. It went on and on and on for hours, and actually I thought we were going to have to take him to the vet.
Well, you should have taken him to the vet. If the dog's sick, you take him to a vet.
Well, you don't immediately, because
you
immediately try and figure out what you can do.
What have you been allowing your dog to do? You see, you've not been looking, you're neglecting your dog again, abandoning your dog.
No, I hadn't been there.
Not taking any notice of it.
It wasn't my fault. Anyway, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, on about the 7th or 8th or 9th time that he actually, was being sick, this sock suddenly appeared out of the inside of him, and he'd eaten a sock, which is not something he's done since he was a very, very young puppy. And immediately a great cheer went up because we knew that was what the problem was. Because if I'd taken him to the vet, it would have been about 300 quid for the X-ray, for them to decide what to do.
300 quid's cheap for the health of your dog.
Well, not if it's not necessary.
300 quid only represents 4 bottles of champagne in your economy, in your house.
Well...
And for 4 bottles of champagne, you could have got your dog cured a lot sooner.
Well, no, not a lot sooner.
That's a disgrace.
Not a lot sooner.
Once again, I'm appalled at your behaviour.
You should not be appalled.
Towards dumb animals.
That it was quite off-putting, because I had to,
I don't abuse dumb animals. I fight a worldwide campaign to free them.
There's been a lot of people actually tweeting about all sorts of orangutans and monkeys all over the world that are in prison. Did you see one that was... There was one just tweeted to me not that long ago about some... I think it was a chimpanzee of some kind that's been kept in the cage for a chicken. Size of a chicken. He's finally been freed.
Oh my God! I just say, doesn't honestly, doesn't bear talking about.
I think it's in Thailand.
Absolutely terrible.
What's happening with the one you're trying to save over in New York?
Well, the campaigns are all underway.
Yeah,
campaigns are all underway. Well, I can't get into
Tommy the chimp. Is it?
Tommy the chimp's.
He's still in the cage.
Still in the cage, I'm afraid. Yeah, but don't worry about that. Don't worry about that because the whole essence of it is to keep up the pressure, and eventually...
And what have you done this week,
those evil people will crack.
What have you done this week?
Well, again, it's all about keeping up the pressure. I don't want to bore you with the details of all the
details.
The pressure movements that I'm involved in, but...
The correspondence.
Listen. It's something, which I'm committed to, and it will happen, and we'll get results. No problem about it. Do you see old Callum Best is getting more and more stick now? From,
I suspected this would happen, because members of George Best's family are now saying, we don't recognise some of the descriptions that Callum Best is using. Remember I said some of the sports writers had said, we've known Callum Best, we've talked to him before. Yes. He's always had great respect for his dad. He's always said that, he loves his dad. And somebody who loves his dad surely wouldn't have said the things that he said about him. There now suggestions that he's kind of making it up.
No, that's completely untrue. If you look at the detail, have you read it all?
Yeah, I have.
You look at all the detail, you couldn't possibly make that up unless you've got the most fertile imagination in the world. Now,
you've done things like that in the past.
Rubbish.
I mean, you could make a great story up about almost anything.
Oh, don't be so ridiculous.
And you know that he would have sat with his book editors and they would have said, look, in order to sell this to a paper, you better put some stuff in there that's scandalous, otherwise nobody's going to want it.
Well, I don't believe
If you write a book saying George Best was a wonderful father, who cares?
I don't believe that. I mean, for instance, one of the tales that his father abandoned him when he was 11 and went off with a prostitute, you haven't seen any of the men who were supposedly at the table in the hotel that night ever come forward and say, no, that's not true, or anything like that.
No, that's true. Some of the criticism from the family has been more like, we can't believe he's saying these things, as opposed to they're not true.
Not only that, one of the worst allegations was from involved his second wife, Alex, that Best came home insensible in drink and accused Callum at 14 of having an affair with his young wife, Alex, who was about 27.
Yeah.
Well, don't you think Alex would have come forward by now? And she's very much alive and still active and lives in my part of the world. She'd have come forward now and said, oh, no, that's not true. So I believe in every word of it. But what I'm saying is that the people who are complaining now are sort of Barbara McNary, 62, Slam the Celebrity, Big Brother Stars book, Second Best, My Dad and Me, George Best's sister.
Yeah.
How often did George Best's sister come over to London to try and rehabilitate her brother, who was known as a chronic drunk?
I've no idea.
Drinking himself to death?
I've no idea. I know that he went back and lived over in Northern Ireland, though, didn't he?
No.
Eventually, at some point. Did he not?
No, he was buried there, but he never went back to live there.
Did he not go back there for a while when he was trying to recover? I think he did after they gave him his new liver.
Not to my knowledge.
No?
Not to my knowledge.
It didn't work out, mind you, but I think maybe he was trying to, get to know her again.
The other thing is, when you read all the full content of the book, George Best was writing a column at the time for the Mail on Sunday. You know the one that Piers Morgan writes now in the front of the colour supplement?
Yeah.
That used to be written by George Best, right? And a few months...
Because it was like a sports magazine, wasn't it, then?
Yeah, it was.
It was sort of a men's magazine.
It was a men's magazine, you're absolutely right. And about a year after he had his transplant, he wrote a diary from Malta and admitted for the first time that on holiday in Malta he had tried a spritzer.
Right.
That is obviously white wine watered down by lemonade, you know?
Some people say it's white wine and soda. You can have it either way, actually.
Yeah, you can have it either way.
Which way do you have it?
I've never had one, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, okay.
What would I be drinking spritzer for?
Well, it's quite nice in the summer.
Yeah, it's rubbish.
What do you mean rubbish? Why? You don't like it watered down, you mean?
No. If I like lemonade, I like lemonade.
Yeah.
If I like white wine, I like white wine. Which nutter mixes the two to have a sort of lemonade wine
Actually, with soda
drink.
water, it's quite nice in the summer.
Well,
it's a long, cool glass in the summer, sitting in the garden.
It sounds like...
I know your garden's a shed, so you can't really have one.
No, it's not a shed, no.
Well, it's a mess, isn't it?
It's under renovation.
It's a mess.
Anyway, the point of my story is...
Yeah, what is the point?
A year afterwards, he said he'd tried a spritzer on holiday. But in fact, if you read the book... Callum says within weeks of him coming out of hospital, he spotted him in the kitchen taking a bottle of wine from the door of the fridge. Yeah. Pouring himself a glass and putting it back. He said that was within weeks of him coming out of hospital. Right. So, any sympathy I've had for George Best over the years is dissipating pretty quickly.
Well, most alcoholics, I'm afraid, are not prone to tell the truth about the way that they drink.
You've got to try a bit harder. If you're not winning, it's because you're not trying hard enough in life,
Well,
Mike.
to be honest, if I was somebody...
If you are not winning, it's because you're not trying hard enough. You should, of all people, you should know that.
Really?
You don't try hard enough. Don't try hard enough looking after your dog. Don't try hard enough to make your...
How about this from Ben?
Your life a domestic one with your children and the mother of your children.
How about this one from Ben, who says, just when things at QPR couldn't get any worse, Parry turns up in hospitality and finishes the place off altogether.
Well, that's not true. Listen, I went with a guy called Neil and his mate and his son Joe, and a very nice day, thank you. And there was a little bit of hospitality involved, to which I contributed fully, of course.
Of course.
Which I contributed fully.
Listen, of all the things that I've accused you of, I've never accused you of a lack of generosity.
No, that's true. And then we got into the stand, nice seat and all that. Saw the goals go in, of course. The Everton second goal was the clincher and the winner.
And I see you've now on Twitter wished all the best to Jerry Barton and the boys at QPR.
Yes, well, I hope that they get out.
Jerry or something?
He did, yeah. And you be careful of that.
I'm starting jumbling up a lot of words tonight.
That's right. And of course, I hope they get out because they're not a club that are steeped in football glory historically, but they're still a very traditional club.
They've always been quite a fashionable club. As I was saying to you, I went to school just down the road, and a lot of my friends at school were QPR fans because they lived in that
was
Shepherd's
that in Rodney
Bush.
Marsh's era?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I suppose it was when you played
and I went a few times with them because they were, although as time went on, I sort of distanced myself from them because it turned out that as they got to be about 15, 16, they were starting to get involved in some behaviour which I didn't want to be associated with.
What, like taking drugs and things?
No, like hooliganism.
Hooliganism?
Well, it was in the era of when football was,
Tell you about hooliganism. Some half-baked clown went around with a spray can around Goodison on Friday night. Martinez out.
Well, or otherwise an Everton fan. Well, an Everton fan.
Yeah, be an Everton fan. Yeah, be a half-baked Everton fan. Yeah. I mean, what kind of moron would go around with a spray can and start spraying messages on your football ground? What a complete and absolute individual who, to my mind, should be deported.
I mean, presumably they've got CCTV cameras all around the ground, haven't they?
I'm not sure they would. I mean, they're ordinary streets, aren't they?
Ordinary streets in London have got cameras all over them.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be able to catch the culprit. But I'm afraid the behaviour of some football fans is pretty awful. I don't know if you saw at the weekend after El Clasico that some of the Real Madrid fans attacked.
That's shocking.
Gareth Bale's car.
When they got back to Madrid, right, he gets to the airport and gets into his white Bentley. He's driving off, and 3 fans around the car. I think they're actually booting the car.
They were, yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely horrible.
And
what is this anti-Bale thing about it? It's all about the fact that Ronaldo has used body language to make out that he's a little bit dissatisfied with the service he's getting from Bale.
But Marca, which is the kind of Real Madrid kind of house newspaper, has been running a bit of a campaign. And I suspect it's the kind of xenophobic thing that they can drum up because he's not Spanish or he's not from that part of the world. A bit like what Greg Dyke's trying to do by saying that people can't come here from outside the European Union.
I don't understand what Mr. Dyke's on about again. Do you know what? I think Mr. Dyke, who's had a very successful life, has too many responsibilities, too many fingers in too many pies. He's busy in too many different industries. And he never seems to me to be a man who's come forward with a really well thought out plan. No. It's like as though, hang on, we better do something about this, bang. And
we better
within
do something.
36 hours, there's another statement.
Well, as you might have heard earlier from when we were talking about it, only 8 players, basically, would be stopped from coming in the last 5 years, but under his new plan. Yeah. So what's the point?
And, his original statement, what was it? We get to the semi-finals in 2018 and the final in 2022. I mean, I'm sorry, but
this is not the way to do it.
Those sort of expansive statements are not really terribly helpful in giving us the confidence in the fact that he is the man with the plan.
But what I want to know, and I'm going to ask you that coming up next, is what you were doing and what was being done at the FA when you were there to try and safeguard the future running of the England national team.
Because
I suspect that you, as the press officer, the leaker-in-chief, were more concerned with leaking stories than you were about the new and bright future of England football.
Made huge strides.
Really?
Huge.
All right, we'll ask you about those. We are the 2 mics. This is Talk Sport. Loads more coming up.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
to...
A bit of Led Zeppelin at this time of the morning, don't you
Yes,
think?
absolutely. Wakes everybody up, doesn't it?
Yeah, now let me read you a couple of tweets that I've got here. One from John, who's tweeted at the two mics. He says, I wonder if Porky had all your food and drink at QPR as you didn't go. He never misses a chance for a few drinks. Did you have an empty chair?
No, we didn't have an empty chair because, of course, it's too valuable to allow, a sort of hospitality seat to go to waste like that. So we made sure that it was properly used and properly appreciated by a proper football fan who wanted to be there and not, pirouette around the edges of maybe, might be, can be, won't be, didn't come in the end.
What are you talking about?
Didn't come in the end.
Yeah, because I wasn't told about it.
Didn't come in the end.
You could have taken Ollie from behind the glass. Yeah, he's a big QPR fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, no. If I had done, probably wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah, it wouldn't have made any difference, no. No, of course. Ollie says he told you on Friday.
Oh, really?
How about this one from Chase, who says, Callum Best and Porky Parry, Pseudologia Fantastica. Do you remember that phrase you discovered the other week?
Pseudologia Fantastica. I certainly did, yeah.
That's what... who was it that was suffering from that?
It's a condition whereby...
Oh, it's the guy Brian Williams, wasn't it, who was suffering from it?
Who?
Brian Williams, that anchor in America.
Oh, that's right, yeah, that's right. You think you've done brilliant things because you convince yourself in your own mind that you have. That's absolutely right.
Which is what you're going to tell me, what you did at the FA, right? And then finally, here's one from World Traveller who says, MG's dog swallowed a sock. Most people want Porky to put a sock in it.
Hey, that's a bit harsh.
Yeah, well, it's true, though.
Thank God the dog recovered. The dog could have died.
Well...
Could have died if that sock had got entangled in its bowel.
Yeah, I know.
So why don't you take it straight to the vet? Honestly, I think that's gross dereliction of duty.
No, because you can't do that.
Really
because you don't know for sure what the problem is. And you have to study it for a few hours to see whether there's anything that needs to be figured out.
On our internal communication system screen, there are some...
You mean the television?
There are some images of big ships in Rotterdam and all that. Now, I can tell you a story about a big ship.
Yeah, there's a big ship in Portsmouth,
very big ship arrived in the Solent on
a massive
Friday.
aircraft carrier from America.
It's called the USS Theodore Roosevelt, right? It's the most magnificent vessel you've ever seen in your life. Yeah. And although I haven't seen it this time...
How far is it from your penthouse?
About...
I mean, can you see it from there?
No, I can't see it from the penthouse balcony because that overlooks Portsmouth Harbour.
Okay.
And the ship is too big to come into the harbour. So it lays off in the Solent between the coast and the Isle of Wight.
Okay. Well, you should be able to see that. You can see the Isle of Wight, can't you? Where you are?
Yeah, but the Isle of Wight's got, quite a lot of sides to it, and it's on the other side, if you see what I mean. But
How many sides has it got?
Well, it's a round sort of island, if you see what I mean. But
it's only got one side, hasn't it? It goes all the way round.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
got three sides. It's
got a north, south, east, west side. That's the point I'm making.
Island.
Anyway, listen. It's been there. I haven't seen it this time, but it's been there before. Right. So I think it's got one of these associations with Portsmouth, which is the home of the British Navy. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Now, the dwindling British Navy.
But the facts about this ship are quite astonishing. There are 6,000 men on board that ship.
Yeah.
3,200 sailors and 2,600 air crew.
Right, okay.
I mean, it's got 90 airplanes.
And is it on the way somewhere, on the way back from somewhere?
I don't know, because...
Haven't your contacts in naval intelligence told you?
Well, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I didn't tell anybody, but I knew it was coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like you. Normally you leak those kind of things, don't you, for money or something?
No.
Or for some kind of, advantage.
I had been... tipped off that
Had you?
The ship was on the
Are
track.
you sure you didn't go into the local hostelry and say, by the way,
No.
there might be some American sailors coming in for
But the
to
point
spend a lot
I
of
was
money?
going to make is to tell you about these astonishing statistics, right? There are 90 planes on the deck of that ship, or on the deck or underneath.
Yeah,
Imagine that, 90 aeroplanes.
Amazing.
Travelling around
those
on a
like
ship.
sort of fighters, though?
They're F-111s and all sorts of things.
Right.
But... according to the latest figures I've seen and the defence projections we've got now on reduced spending figures, we've only got about 180 strike aircraft
total?
In total. Right. They've got 90 on one ship.
They've got half of
and they've got
the
7 aircraft carriers.
So they've got the entire half of the RAF's airplanes.
On the deck.
On the deck.
On the deck. The 6,000 soldiers, the 6,000 personnel represent what is eventually going to be about 20% of the Royal Navy. Yeah. Apparently we're only going to have about 32,000 people in the Navy eventually, and 6,000 men belonging to the US Navy, either as Air Force...
I mean, their country has got about 4 times as many people as ours, isn't it?
But I'm just saying, you look at the statistics and all that.
Probably 5 times, actually.
It's a massive, massive ship, and it's called the Big Stick. And why do you think it's called the Big Stick?
Well, because you walk silently and carry a big stick, don't you?
That's exactly what Theodore Roosevelt said. It's the USS Theodore Roosevelt.
There you go.
See, I told you all about that. Be fine. Anyway...
will you be visiting it while it's in port, or how long is it there for? Or is that a secret?
It's there until Thursday.
Oh, right. Not long, then.
No, not long. But there'll be lots of visits both ways, you know, like a lot of Americans reported in Portsmouth over the weekend, which, of course, there would be if there's 6,000 personnel on the ship.
Well, right.
They come ashore.
Do they get shore leave, do you think?
Yeah, they get shore leave.
It could be a bit of a mess, that
No, they get shore leave.
I remember being in New York once when there was a big carrier coming to New York.
Yep.
And the whole city was covered with these guys.
That's right.
And they're all in uniform. But they were all getting absolutely bladdered, as you would say, in various bars.
They're all in white uniforms, aren't they? Sparkling white uniforms. And
my ex-wife actually got into a row with one of them because she was at the time going through this period of being a pacifist. You know, she didn't believe in war, and so she started trying to tell these guys that they shouldn't be killing anybody.
You're joking?
Yeah, no, I'm not joking.
How mad
I literally
is that?
had to drag her out of this bar on 23rd Street.
How mad is that? Well, for one reason or another, I was in Mallorca once when the USS John F. Kennedy turned up. That's another aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think there is still one that carries its name, but it's not the same one as it was then. That was about 20 years ago.
I think there is.
Yeah. So anyway, this again, it's too big to dock portside. Mallorca.
Yeah, right.
Palma, Mallorca.
Right.
So anyway, that night and for subsequent nights, there's gangs of sailors all over the place.
Right.
But what I didn't realise was one of the biggest units on board these carriers are the internal discipline section, i.e. the military police.
The brig.
No, the military police are very active, and these shore patrols go ashore in groups of 12 or 24 of them or something like that.
To drag them back.
They take baseball bats, and we actually saw the shore patrols laying into some of these sailors with baseball bats, knocking them out and dragging them out of bars.
Right.
You know,
that's maybe it's the only way to get them back on the ship.
Exactly, that sort of thing.
You should say Mallorca, because my sister actually met a bunch of sailors when she was in Mallorca as a young teenager, right? And incredibly, and you might find this astonishing, I did, even as a young man, when she came home with pictures, they got her onto the ship. They brought her and her friend onto the ship, and there's loads of pictures of them standing on this aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Not for I can see your face looking at me as if some nefarious thing was going
Quizzically,
on. No, she was about 17.
Okay.
She told me nothing happened. There's nothing to do with me. It's none of my business.
Right.
But anyway, but she actually sat in the cockpit of an F-15.
Good God.
And they're taking pictures of her and I'm thinking, surely this is some kind of...
She sat in the cockpit of an American fighter jet?
Yeah, of an F-15. There's a picture of her, yeah.
Good God.
And you'd think that there would have been some law against that.
You would have thought so.
You can't just, drag young women onto a plane.
When we used to have aircraft carriers in this country, illustrious and...
We're still building one, aren't we?
Well,
building the New York
allegedly
Royal
we're building one. Nobody's ever seen it, but I mean, allegedly we're building it. And it's
we're building half of it in Scotland, half of it down here.
It's been built all over the place and then put together in units. But when they used to, berth them at Portsmouth, they didn't have any aeroplanes on them, not since I've been there anyway.
Yeah.
So a pretty pointless aircraft carrier with no aircraft. But the one thing that was quite distinctive was you always used to see soldiers on guard marching up and down the deck carrying machine guns.
Yeah.
So, there is a great awareness these days
nowadays,
of the potential of whereas in my father's day when he went on the ship, you just walked up and down off the gangplank.
Oh, well, I'm sure. I mean, what happened in Mallorca, that was in the 70s. Yeah. I'm sure that wouldn't happen now. But I still have to ask you, which I haven't got time to do at the moment, about the FA situation.
Oh, major innovations.
Because I want to know what innovations you were responsible for.
I designed a new pair of cufflinks.
Cufflinks?
Yes, with the FA... what are you laughing at?
Typical of you.
No,
you designed a new pair of cufflinks?
With the FA logo on them.
Well, who asked you to do that?
Well, that's to spread goodwill. It was my idea. I was head of communications.
Have you got like a box load of them at home then?
No.
I expect.
I designed a new tie as well, and
a new tie.
And I got the budget, my budget for hospitality.
Right, was the press officer's budget?
Yes, that's right. Meeting other journalists increased from £50 to £100 a week.
But presumably they were buying you the drinks anyway, so you didn't need to spend that kind of money.
Well, I like to buy a few occasionally. Yeah. In fact, usually I used to save them for good-looking female contacts, right, who worked in other industries, and go out and wine and dine them.
Yeah, well,
that was the whole idea.
I'm surprised you didn't start a new kind of mission of just flying around the world to visit different FAs in various different capitals.
Well, we did a bit of that. Yeah, we did a bit of that. Yeah,
shocking.
That was,
I mean, this is why the FA's in the state that it's in, because of the abandonment that went on when you were there. This is Talk Sport. He's Mike Parry. I'm celebrating their 30th anniversary, didn't they?
They just did, didn't they, last week? And I think our pals Hawksby and Jacobs, Paul and Andy, got involved.
They did, they had a bunch of them in the studio.
Yeah, excellent. But that the reason we played that is because Jackie Trent, the woman who wrote it, has just died.
Yeah, age 74.
Age 74, and the most fantastic story. I mean, she started off as a singer herself. She had... she got into the chart alongside Cilla Black with Where are you now, my love? Remember that one?
No, I don't remember
Where
that one.
are you
it's
now,
before my time,
my love? And that knocked the Beatles' Ticket to Ride off the number 1 spot.
Did
How
it?
about that? Yeah. So, anyway, she then developed a bigger interest in songwriting rather than
performing.
Yeah, she met Tony Hatch, who was himself a songwriter, and they started writing fantastic songs together, like... a lot of them she wrote for Petula Clark.
Yeah.
Don't Sleep in the Subway, Darling.
Yeah, that one I know.
I Couldn't Live Without Your Love. I couldn't live without your love.
This is why you do this, isn't it? So you can have an excuse to sing.
No. It's because
anytime anybody who's a singer dies, you want to talk about it. But what you never tell me is because you want to sing.
No, I think it's fantastic. She wrote more than 400 songs. She wrote for Frank Sinatra, Jack Jones, Des O'Connor, Val Doonigan, Shirley Bassey, and Dean Martin.
Do you know what else she wrote?
Eh?
Do you know what else she wrote?
What?
She wrote Stoke City's 1972
yes, I know that,
League Cup final song.
I know that, yeah.
We'll Be With You.
Her father was a miner in the Midlands coalfields.
In the potteries.
In the potteries, that's right, yeah. But
that's a surprising thing, though, isn't it? I mean, how unusual is that? I mean, you can't have many sort of, famous songwriters who've written a football song.
No, you can't. No, I totally agree. And she's committed, obviously, to her roots. But after 17 years of being married, she was out dancing with her husband one night. That's Tony Hatch.
Yeah.
And he suddenly turned to her and said, I've been in love with another woman for 17 years. I'm really sorry, but I'm leaving you. And walked off.
And your view on this? Morals of an alley cat.
Morals of an alley cat, definitely, and a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
But that only prompted her to go on and then, write all sorts of other great songs inspired by that terrible moment, including I Couldn't Live Without Your Love. Right. I couldn't live without your love.
Don't sing it. And then she ended up living in Spain with another guy that she married in 2005, but she might have been quite sort of advanced in years, I suppose.
Well, she was 74, wasn't she, when she died? So
well, she would have been 64 in 2005.
In 2005, she would have been 64. Of course she would. That's 10 years ago.
That goes to prove you can still get married at that age.
Well, who said you couldn't?
Well, you said you shouldn't. You said you shouldn't be naked in your 60s.
Well, I do agree with that.
You said you shouldn't have sex in your 60s.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
You more or less said that you wouldn't get married now because you're too old.
I do agree with that. And she also had that sort of fantastic start in life, leaving school at 15 because she didn't like her bookwork and all that, coming to London, trying to get a job as a singer, dancer, joining the Tiller Girls and all that kind of stuff, And she had this fantastic blonde, big hair, which women in the 60s had. I think it's a fantastic story. Yeah. Really, really sorry to hear of her going, considering that she has contributed so much to the common culture of the working man. That's what I say.
And she's been able to give you an opportunity to sing as well, which is even more important.
Hey, talking about singers and ladies and all that, I am heartbroken at what I've been reading over the weekend about the breakup between Sir Elton John and his mother. His mother's over 90.
They're not speaking to each other or something, right?
They haven't spoken for 7 years.
Yeah.
And when you read into it, it's because he alleges she made some comment about David Furnish, his partner in life.
So did she not attend their wedding then?
Yes, she did.
Oh, she did?
Well, not the wedding, the one where they exchanged vows and all that. What was it called? Not the wedding, the civil ceremony. Civil ceremony.
Because they were the first couple to do it, weren't they?
That's right. It was Windsor Castle,
wasn't it? Windsor,
yeah. And she did go to that, but then later... Elton stopped talking to her. He said that she said something offensive about David Furnish. Right. She can't remember what it was, but she's a really game old lady because at this 90th birthday party, because she's now hasn't had any contact with her son for 7 years, one of the world's most famous entertainers, she got an Elton John impersonator to come along.
That's shocking,
and he sung the full range of songs.
But isn't that shocking? I mean, I know that you can have feuds in your family and you can fall out with your parents and your brothers and your aunts and uncles and all of that, but I mean, if your mother's 90... surely you should go to a party no matter what.
Well, your mother's 90, isn't she?
She's going to be 91 next week.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So
I went to her 90th last year over in America.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So I thought it would ring a bell with you. And I just thought to myself, how sad, because 90-year-olds don't live forever. And there's going to be a moment when he's going to get that call from somebody saying, look, I'm awfully sorry, it's your mother. Yeah. Surely he'll then regret the 7 years of non-communication, won't he? Yeah. I mean... whatever he could have said about his partner in life or what, and she has literally no clue what it was. Right. Doesn't he realise that ladies who would then have been 83 and their mothers and they've been through life and all that, they might say unfortunate things, and it might have been misinterpreted.
Well, my mother still took about 6 months to get over what my speech that I made at her 90th birthday party.
Really?
She didn't like some of the things that I said.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
She thought I gave away a few secrets that she'd rather I didn't give away.
Well, you were probably heavily intoxicated.
I was jet lagged. I think you'll find
jet lagged. That's a pseudonym for bladdered.
No, bladdered.
Yeah,
no,
you're bladdered.
No, by coincidence, by the way, Elton John apparently, according thing to know. I don't know if this is true. I said we could check it. But I got this from Shadow Boxer, who tweeted it at the two mics. There's a picture of Elton John performing at the end of Bournemouth Pier.
Oh, right.
In his famous concert. Now, I don't know if he did do a concert at the end of Bournemouth Pier.
I remember that picture,
You know what's funny is he's dressed as a duck.
He's wearing a duck costume.
And, of course, you still, now that Bournemouth are back at the top of the Championship,
it's looking
you better
grim.
get yourself fitted up for the old duck suit, I think.
I just wondered whether the USS Theodore Roosevelt had arrived in the English Channel at the expectation that very soon I'd be throwing myself off Porto Pier,
possibly.
and they might have to deal with the ongoing tsunami.
Here's one from Alan in London, who's obviously somebody who knows a bit about the Naval Air Force situation. Right. He says the F-15 Strike Eagle does not and never has been embarked or flown on carriers. Presumably, depending on how long ago, it would have been an F-14 Tomcat, now retired, or an F-18 Hornet. He's talking about that story I told about my sister.
About your sister.
Well, it may well have been an F-14. I don't know. I'm not sure. And then somebody's tweeted in about something that his dog once ate a pair of tights. Yeah. But it came out the other end, which I don't really want to go into.
Don't know about that. No.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult with dogs, I must say.
But I mean, how do you stop your dog eating socks?
Well, all you can do, and I keep imploring everybody in the house, because there's constantly washing being done and socks fall down. And, you know, just say to the kids, look, just don't leave any socks anywhere, because, you know, we thought he was over it. We thought he wouldn't do it anymore.
Because the Labrador will eat anything.
They pretty much will eat anything.
Why don't you spray everything in the house with ammonia that you don't want the dog to eat?
You can't spray everything in the house with ammonia.
You have an ammonia spray. I've used an ammonia spray to get rid of the cat that tried to invade my garden.
Has that cat come back?
No, it hasn't come back.
After you put the false teeth in?
No, it hasn't come back.
No, that's good. So that worked then.
False teeth shot worked, and also the ammonia spray, because I've been spraying all the garden furniture with ammonia.
Yeah, well, that's fine, but I don't want to spray the inside of the house with ammonia.
Why
First
not?
of all, because it makes the house smell of ammonia.
Well, no, ammonia's a good smell.
No, it's not.
It is.
It smells like a sort of gentleman's toilets in Leicester Square.
No. Well, I've never been to a gentleman's toilet in Leicester Square, so I wouldn't know.
No, everybody has.
Well, why would I go to a gentleman's toilet in Leicester Square?
Well, there are many reasons why you would go, but mainly to use the toilet.
No, I don't use public lavatories.
Don't you?
I use...
Well, what do you do if you have to go somewhere when you're out?
I go to a five-star hotel.
Or a bar?
No, not usually a bar. Bars are a bit risky.
Well, of course there's a five-star...
I usually go to a five-star hotel.
If there's not a five-star hotel handy.
Well, I go to the best possible, location I can go to. No, not even the Toby Carvery, but I'm very particular about use of bathrooms, and I plan my life around not having to use public lavatories. I think they're very dodgy places, although I'm sure local authorities try very hard not to make them so.
They do.
Yeah.
There have been some very strange developments in that area, but it's not a good thing to talk about.
No, it's not.
I want to ask you instead about Richard III.
Well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. You're absolutely right. I want to talk about that. But just talking about bars and all that.
Yeah.
How many years ago did you and I first come across the idea of, look, if we go around hotels and take these dab pads with us, you'll find cocaine in the loos and all that, because people use it on the cisterns and all that?
Well, people started doing that, I suppose. They did it in the Houses of Parliament, didn't they? They did it all over the place.
Well, we've been doing that for 25, 30 years.
I don't remember ever doing that.
Manchester United players from the class of 92, some of them got together and they funded a hotel just outside Old Trafford.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it's called the Footballers' Hotel.
They were supposed to be opening one in London, weren't they?
I don't know, but this one's open. But all I was going to say is, one of the old red top tabloids has gone around with the old dab pads, and done the old test again.
Right.
We found traces of cocaine. I mean, I think that's a cheap trick these days.
Well, you could do it anywhere, really, couldn't you?
I was about to say, almost any establishment in this country where people go and purchase drink and to some extent food, you will find traces of cocaine.
Right.
I'm afraid it is a national obsession in its life, although...
Well, London and Britain certainly is now the cocaine capital of Europe, apparently.
Is it really?
Yeah.
But do you know what? I don't take it. I've never been offered it. I don't see people doing it.
Well, I'm glad you're not going to sit here and admit to taking Class A drugs on the radio.
No, I don't. But what I'm saying is, if it's such an epidemic, why don't I see people occasionally, sneaking away into bathrooms to snort cocaine up their nose? And why don't I see people dabbing their nose all the time?
Maybe you just don't go to the right places.
Because apparently when you're taking a lot of cocaine, your nose runs all the time. You know what I mean?
Well, some people, like Linda Ronstadt, had to have her nose completely reworked. She had to have it all completely redone because of all the damage she did to it. And would you remember, what's her name from EastEnders?
Oh, she lost her septum in the middle of her nose. I think it was Ronnie Wood who actually said...
Daniela Westbrook,
he knew he had a problem. When he looked down, he could see straight through his left nostril into his lip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
I'll tell you what, there was another interesting story the other day. I don't know if you saw this one, about a bus driver who was fired because they gave him a random drug test or something like that, and he tested positive for cocaine. It turned out that he'd been eating a sandwich, and shortly before eating the sandwich, he had somehow been handling a couple of £5 notes that somebody had given him, and the traces of the drug off the £5 note had actually got into his system, and he's now fighting to try and get his job back. But they reckon, I think, that now every single piece of currency in a note form has been contaminated in one way or another.
That means people are using these as funnels to store cocaine.
Yeah.
See, this is a damaging world we're in. I don't belong in this world anymore.
He's now putting his hands over his head.
This world is too evil for me.
Evil?
Too evil.
Well, you would fit very well in an evil world.
I could get trapped into a cocaine, hell, nightmare. Talking about Richard III...
I thought you were going to talk about sneezing after that.
No, I've talked about sneezing. I've said you sneeze all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, sneezing, I'll tell you about in a minute, yeah. But you wanted to talk about Richard III.
Well, I want to talk about Richard III because I think this hysteria about the burial of Richard III is absolutely out of all proportion. I had a big row, actually, at home about it because not everyone agrees with me, it turns out. But, I mean, the idea that they're throwing white flowers on the coffin...
Unbelievable.
And even putting him in a coffin when, one, we're not even sure that it's him.
No, it could be a cousin of his, apparently.
It could be any number of different people. There doesn't seem to be any link with the Battle of Bosworth Field.
That's right.
Where they found the body, right? There's no link to his male DNA, which suggests that either the Plantagenets had some kind of illegitimate break in the line, or it's not him. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It was 530 years ago, and by the way, this man was a mass murderer. Well, he murdered the princes in the tower.
But that is also now in question. I think what's going on here is that the people who have spent all this money and time digging him up have become almost like fans of Richard III, and they're the people who are putting around this case basically that he didn't do it. And in fact, the princes in the tower were murdered by somebody else.
Rubbish.
And actually, he was this really nice, benevolent king. And he was only king for 2 years anyway.
They all said that, he's misrepresented in the Shakespeare play because he wasn't a hunchback. Yeah. Well, when they found his body, they found he is a hunchback. He's got a curvature spine.
Yeah, but even that is not proof that it's necessarily him.
No, it could be one of his cousins. Apparently, they were a family of hunchbacks. They were all hunched.
Can we say that now, hunchback?
Yeah, of course you can.
It doesn't sound like a very PC word.
Well, what do you want to call them? Curvebacks?
Well, I don't know. If somebody was walking around who had a hunchback, you don't see it very much anymore, do you?
No, you don't. Fortunately, no. It was a congenital condition brought about by the lack of milk in the diet, and instead of getting rickets in your legs, you got a hunchback in your back.
Do you remember that guy that used to work at the Express, Roger the Messenger, who was one of the most famous characters in the building?
Well, that's a bit unkind. I hope you're not... Well, Roger was disabled.
No, because he fell down a lift shaft.
Well, no, he didn't actually. What happened? He didn't actually fall down it. What happened was the doors of the lift opened and he was looking behind him, talking to somebody else, and he stepped in it. There was no lift. Yeah. And so as a result, the paper thought they better give him a job for life, otherwise it could cost them quite a lot of money to disable a man by asking him to go and make a delivery using the lift. Then there's no lift.
My favourite story...
You shouldn't be laughing at this.
No, I know. My favourite story about it was when one of the cabinet ministers came round to meet Nick Lloyd for lunch. I think it was Heseltine or somebody. Yeah. And it was Roger's birthday. Right. And he'd been taken down the pub downstairs. And he was sitting in his usual spot, lounging, waiting to be given something to do. And just as Heseltine walked past, Sir Nicholas Lloyd pointed to him and said, "That's Roger, our messenger. He's been working with us forever, and he's actually the only person in this building with a job for life."
Yeah,
and just as Heseltine went and extended his hand, he turned towards the bin and vomited.
Oh dear, that's disgraceful.
Because he was drunk. But anyway,
disgusting.
It was very funny.
If you love the Two Mics podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He's Mike Parry, and there will be a podcast coming out in a little while. Mr. Parry, I've been thinking about you. This actually came my way. This came my way apropos of nothing at all. But I thought you're a man that can use it, and it's a voucher for £5 off when you spend £20 on food at a Toby Carvery. Because of course I'm not going to use it, so I thought you could have it. Would you like it?
This is serious, is it?
Well, yeah, it's £5. It's a £5 off voucher at Toby Carvery.
And why would I take that off you?
Well, because you go to Toby Carvery.
Sometimes, occasionally.
I'm just trying to pay you back for some of the many acts of generosity that you've handed me over the years.
£5 off, spend £20 or more on food. Yeah. Valid Monday to Saturday from the 16th of March to the 28th of March.
So you've got until the end of this week then? You didn't know what date it was, then, did you?
Says your local Toby is Snaresbrook. Where's Snaresbrook?
Snaresbrook. There's a Crown Court there. You should know that.
Snaresbrook Crown Court. Well, I'm not going to go there, am I?
Isn't that over towards the west side of London?
I tell you what I'm doing with this.
What are you going to do? You're ripping it up.
Okay.
That's gratitude for you.
You take your £5 voucher,
He's
mate.
thrown it at me.
Take your £5 voucher, put it in your pipe and smoke it.
That's a nice thing I've given you. Why would you not want to do that?
Trying to belittle me again, are you?
Not at all.
You're
trying to save you some money.
Your £70 bottles of champagne.
I'm trying to save you some money.
Save me any money at all, pal. If I want to go to a Toby Carvery, I go there in private. I pay for it myself.
Go there in private?
Yeah.
Well, you get a private room?
Well, I don't have a private room, but I mean...
One of your finest private rooms.
I don't publicise it. As far as I'm concerned, you're
I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked that you would not accept a
I'm not accepting it.
Now, an act of kindness. The last thing I would do for you.
Yeah, well, it's the last thing I want you to do for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, listen, you mentioned sneezing earlier.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
This is amazing. This is because, of course, we mentioned cocaine, and cocaine apparently makes you sneeze.
Yeah.
By the way, you know in the original House of Cards, the one that was done in this country...
Hey, you know who must have made a fortune out of this, by the way, because he still gets a credit on the new versions of it.
Yes.
It's Michael Dobbs.
Who I know extremely well. Lord Dobbs, isn't he?
Yeah, when did you talk to him last?
Well, not that long ago.
Really?
He was a big mate of Mr. Potts at the Express.
He was also a big mate of another woman executive who worked there, whose name shall remain unnamed.
Oh, yes?
Yes.
Intriguing. But anyway, what I was going to say was, in the original House of Cards... Didn't Francis Urquhart, the evil, political schemer, swap the mouthy PR guy's cocaine stash for poison? And then when the guy...
I can't remember, maybe.
Yes, he did, yeah. And then when the guy was driving home next day and had to stop for a quick snort of cocaine, he actually snorted drug poison and killed himself. Yeah.
I've got the original one, actually. I must watch it again.
Well, there you go. Anyway, the sneezing thing, right? I love this. This is great. Because what I came across was some information that police in Carlisle are hunting for a middle-aged man...
Are they?
Who goes around on Saturday afternoons and slaps anybody who sneezes.
Really?
Yeah. If he spots
that sounds
somebody...
like the kind of thing you would do.
You're not that far wrong.
No.
You're not that far wrong.
Because I know you're kind of a bit mad about other people's germs, aren't you?
Exactly, and all this and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so he walks around the town centre. If he sees people sneezing and they don't properly... deal with that sneezing, like in a handkerchief or something like that.
Right.
He slaps them. And
that's outrageous behaviour.
No, it's not outrageous behaviour. It's great behaviour. Now, I remember once... I mean, sneezing is one of the most dangerous forms of public health threat you can possibly have.
Yeah, but it's involuntary, isn't it? You can't really stop yourself sneezing.
You should always, at all times, have a hanky in which to contain the sneeze.
Not true, no, that's not true.
Yes, you should. Yes, you should.
A handkerchief actually will carry more germs to the rest of the public than having, say, a paper tissue.
Well, that's what I meant, a paper tissue.
But not an
paper
actual
tissue
cloth,
all the time,
not an
and you
actual
dispose of it. You dispose of it at that moment.
Yeah.
Now...
well, you can't always, but you can put it in your pocket.
You must. Now, I remember once I worked at one place where, of course, I was the boss.
Were you?
And I was on the news floor.
You were not there for long, then?
I'll ignore that. I was there on the news floor, and all of a sudden, this guy stood up, a big portly chap, and everybody sort of looked up and started sort of almost clapping like that. Right. And he put his head back, and then he went... and he most, got...
so they all knew what he was going to do?
Exactly. This was his party trick.
Oh,
this is his party trick in the newsroom.
Not good.
And I'd only sort of, arrived there recently.
Yeah.
And I saw this from my office through a glass window, and I thought, what's going on there? So I went out and I called this guy in. I said, can you come and have a word, please? And I said, what did you do then?
Yeah.
He said, it's my party trick. He said, I can make the loudest sneeze in the world. I said, do you know how many germs you shoot out of your filthy nose when you're sneezing?
Is that how you spoke to him?
I did, yeah. Oh, yeah, I was completely contemptuous.
Was there another HR complaint after that?
No, there was no HR in those days. I was completely contemptuous.
That's why they brought them in.
I called him an overweight slob. In fact, I called him a fat slob.
Did you?
And
that's shocking the way you used to treat people.
And I said, disgusting behaviour. I said, you could pollute the atmosphere in here. You could give people germs and
then it would cost them a day off.
Yeah,
because
give them flu and all that. And I sent him home immediately. I said, until you can learn to behave like a civilised human being, don't come back here. When you do come back with a hanky. If I ever see you sneeze again, and make it a public exercise rather than some sort of private mission to contain those germs. You'll be out of here.
I must say, I agree with your sentiment. I'm not sure I would have delivered it quite in that way.
Well, you see, that's because you don't have to approach problems like that, Mike. You've got no bottle when it comes to dealing with other people. You're bottleless.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I've fired an awful lot of people in my time, actually. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I'm not aware of it.
One of them burst into tears. I had to take this woman down. And one of the worst things I had to do when I was at the Express, when I had to fire people, was they decided to fire them that day, like on the premises. And basically we split up like, three of us had to do it.
Yes.
But the worst thing was you had to literally tap people on the shoulder and say, excuse me, would you like to come with me, please?
Yeah.
Which you would never do under normal circumstances. So immediately people were kind of like... And the first one was this woman who was working on the back bench. And I said, would you like to come with me? And as we started walking down the stairs to the next floor down, which was where HR was, she said, should I be worried about this? And I said, yeah, probably. And we got down to the HR office, and where she sat with this other woman who was the HR director and me. And as we went through it, she suddenly started attacking me. I mean, not physically, but verbally, and burst into tears. And I was made to be the villain of the piece. And I'm like, well, this has nothing to do with me. I'm just being asked to do this.
Why were you giving her the boot?
Well, because it was another one of these, redundancy exercises
where
cut down reorganisation, cut down the staffing and all that. And, I became the villain of the piece. And in the end, by the time this whole redundancy exercise had finished, she was still appealing it. Right. And then I got fired in the meantime. So when I left, I think she's still working there.
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, that's a good role reversal.
Because she claimed that I was in some way bullying her.
I remember 2 instances, honestly, of both involved people on the picture desk. And one was called in and told that, I'm sorry it's all over, by the editor himself, which is very unusual, because editors didn't like to do those things.
No, they like to wash their hands of it, don't they?
But he thought it was going to be easy. But anyway, what happened was, the guy who'd just been fired literally fell on his knees in front of the editor, wrapped his arms around his legs, and burst into tears and started sobbing, saying, I've got a wife and 3 children, I can't go without a job, please don't sack me, please.
And a very expensive bar bill, as I seem to recall.
Exactly, very expensive bar bill.
Now, a couple of tweets to read out to you. Just before
hang on. He retained the job.
Yeah, I know he did, I know he did.
That's one way of doing it.
He took Redundo later. Woodenhead, who sends regular messages in, says, what an ungrateful swine Mike Parry is. Mike Graham gives him a generous gift that anyone would want, and he throws it back in his face.
I did, it was contemptuous.
Absolutely horrendous. John Laguna says, Porky, I think you're a great guy, but if you walked up to me and slapped me for sneezing, I think I'd give you a big smack back. You don't go around assaulting people in the street.
Well, I think you can if they're spreading germs. I think they deserve it.
Well, it's self-appointed sneeze police.
Yeah, that's right.
And here's one from Kathleen in Shropshire, who says, Tony Hatch also wrote the theme for Sports Night and Man Alive, which Jackie may have contributed to.
Wow, is that right?
That's interesting, isn't it?
Man Alive, don't remember that.
Now, here's another one for you. You're talking about the police looking for this guy. Have you seen the latest story about London? You're going to be now fined £20 if you are found sitting in your car with the engine idling.
Yeah.
Now, not at the traffic lights, but if you're just waiting by the side of the road.
Yeah, but you're pumping out all sorts of filth out of the exhaust pipe.
So you're in favour of this, are you?
No, I'm not in favour of it. I'm not in favour of it because I'll tell you why. The war against the motorists has now become so demonic.
I'll tell you what, I had such a hard time getting in tonight.
It's disgusting. By the way, there's certain parts of London now which you and I are going to have to travel through to get here and get back, where you can only go 20 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, I've been telling you about this. I can't go more than 20 miles an hour over there,
I know, but this is at 4:30 a.m. in the morning.
This is at all times.
No, but what I'm saying is there's nobody around at 4:30 a.m.
I know, tell me about it.
Make these things distinctive, say rush hours only or something like that. There's a school or something, but there's no kids going to school at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I know.
So why am I being told that my luxury limo has got to be...
It's a C-Class Mercedes.
Has got to... Well, it's
not a luxury limo.
Well,
it might be a limo to you, but it's not very limo to anybody else.
Well, I've tried it, and I may revert to another car in November. Really? Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
What, you mean a more British car?
I may go back to the Jag.
Flasher.
I go back to the Jag. But anyway, point of my story is...
What is the point of your story?
Is that why should I have to idle along at 20 miles an hour and cost the economy of this country a great deal of money? Because people who go more slowly are going to cost the economy an awful lot of money. This is why I say we've got to put the speed limit on motorways up to 90 miles an hour, and the growth in the economy would increase by 1%.
Yeah, here's one from Adrian who says,
right?
This is very good. He says, you two make Fleet Street of the 80s and 90s sound like something out of Caligula. Pretty much was, really. Apart from the horse's head. It was all
the
there.
Horse's head. You know the other one.
Have you seen the time, by the way?
Yeah, just 1 second. The other problem is, again, this involved the picture desk.
You can't tell me another story now.
I've got to.
But look at the light.
OK, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you in a minute. Hold on to it. Now, we haven't done winners and losers yet, but I'm afraid Toby Gillies has already got himself a -1 mark for suggesting, after I wanted a piece of classical music, Gershwin. Yeah. Gershwin is not classical music, you complete plonk.
No, it's not.
Plank. Whatever.
What is Gershwin?
What is Gershwin?
Yeah.
Well, Gershwin is jazz, basically.
Gershwin is jazz, is it?
This is Rhapsody in Blue, which is not a classical piece.
No, I agree. This sounds like the sort of stuff you'd hear in the Cotton Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Now,
or a piano bar in New York or something like that.
Now,
the reason I'd asked for classical music is because a piece in one of the papers today, Symphony for the Red Devils, it says that Louis van Gaal's latest thing is to get them, the players to listen to classical music before a game instead of rap.
Well, I think that's great, because that calms you down.
Well, that's what he says.
Classical music calms. I quite often listen to it in my car, a bit of classical stuff. Yeah. I find it
You don't like the piano
soothing.
in it, though, do you?
I'm not going into that. I'm not going into that again. You know exactly what my sentiments about that were. Yeah. This other story about the Redondo thing, right?
Yes, go on.
It's a guy, again, on the picture desk, and
it's not that guy that came up to you at the big party for former people at the Express and said, "I've always hated you." Is it the same guy?
No, it's not actually.
That was brilliant.
Although he did work on the picture desk.
That was brilliant.
He took me aside. It was a reunion party at Express. Could I have a word with you, please? I said, yeah, we're over in the corner.
And this was where loads of people had met each other and hadn't seen each other for years, right?
For 20 years maybe, or something like 10 years or something like that. Could I have a word with you, please? I said, yes, and we walked over into the corner. I just wanted to tell you, all those years I worked for you, I hated you then, and I hate you now. And I didn't give any reaction at all. I was holding a glass of wine in my hand.
People carry these grudges.
Yeah, I'd moved on to
this is the thing,
a much better
particularly
job.
with you. See, it very rarely happens to me. Most people quite liked me. I mean, there were some who I'd had unfortunate sort of passings with if I'd had to fire them or something. But with you, I mean, almost everybody says that.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but after about 20 seconds, he was staring at me, and I said, "Okay, fine." He said, "Well, have you got anything more to say?"
Right.
I said, no, that's fine. He said, right, and then he just walked off. But it reminded me of that famous quote from some famous person, that it's never very difficult to tell the difference between a ray of sunshine and a Scotsman with a crutch, because that was very typical that night.
Yeah.
No, this was another guy on the picture desk, and what happened was, the notice came down from above that there's going to have to be a redundancy on the picture desk.
Yeah.
You know, they had too many people. And they did have about 8 in those days. There was far too many, So the guy who wanted to go was actually the boss guy. Remember the Duke?
Yeah.
And he decided, he's going to move on. He'd had a lot of years, in charge and all that. So as he was about to sort of march up the corridor to volunteer himself, his deputy came rushing after him, and again burst into tears. Oh, Dukey.
Yeah.
He was called the Duke. His name was Dukanovic because he was
Serbian, wasn't he?
Of Serbian or Croatian descent. And, and spills out this long story about he'd run up terrible gambling debts at the Playboy Club and all this kind of stuff, and he needed the money.
He needed the redundancy himself.
Yeah. So, out of the goodness of his heart, Dukey said, all right then. So he turned around, walked back down the corridor, let the other bloke go. He took the 35 grand redundo, or probably a lot more, probably about 50 grand redundo, something like that. And the following day, started on the Daily Mirror as the new picture editor. He didn't have any gambling debts.
Absolutely
it was a really wicked old world.
It was absolutely cutthroat
in those days.
Now, a couple more tweets to read out to you. Here's one from Bill, who says, Mr. Parry is Balloonia porcatubia, which is another one of these Latin phrases. And he says, also, can you tell Captain Hogwash he's no Lord Nelson? Hashtag sinking ship. That's a lot of people have been making remarks about, your shipping stories from the dinghy and the Norfolk Broads that you were describing earlier on. And here's another one.
Norfolk Broads, actually. Felixstowe.
And here's one from William, who says, has Porky heard anything from his friends at Naval Intelligence about Argentina threatening to re-invade the Falklands?
Well, that's all to do with Putin and the Russians.
Yeah.
Putin's getting nasty with the West, so he's threatening to arm all sorts of rebellious outposts of the Western's empire, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll hear next about him moving back into Cuba, won't you? Bound to.
Well, I mean, he's certainly flexing his muscles,
Yeah, exactly. He wants to arm the Argentinians to invade the Falklands. You can bet your life it'll be Cuba next.
Right. Now, the professor, who, of course, is our man who knows an awful lot about history,
says this guy in Mexico.
In Mexico, yeah. Right. He says, Richard III didn't kill his nephews in the Tower. We need to look at Lady Margaret Beaufort or Anne Neville.
Oh, well, that's just a theory.
Well, they're all theories. The problem
theories,
is, what we do know is that they were murdered in the Tower because their bodies were found. But there's actually no specific information that proves categorically that it's even them.
The man who benefited was Richard III, because he may not have succeeded the throne if he hadn't got rid of them.
Yeah.
Now then, do you make your life more exciting by just taking silly risks on silly things to see whether it works?
No, absolutely
not.
I've never done that.
I've read this psychological report. I told you that I've been studying psychology now for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. Or as a patient, indeed,
but do you know what people do? If they get somewhere in town or something like that, they then decide to go shopping. They deliberately don't lock their car.
What?
Because they like the risk factor of thinking it won't get stolen.
That's a stupid risk.
That
is idiotic.
Yeah,
that
really.
Is absolutely idiotic. It's like people in America, and I know some of these people who live out, not in New York, but outside of New York, who never lock their houses. Because they like the idea that not because it's a risk, but they say, well, it's because our community is so safe that we really like to feel that our homes are open to anyone. It's like,
That's like going back to pre-war Britain.
Yeah.
You know, we had, we have a back gate and a back door. Yeah. We never lock it. And the neighbours walk in and out.
I stayed in somebody's house once, and she refused to lock the door, and I actually got up in the middle of the night and locked it.
I don't blame you.
I'm not sleeping in a house with a door.
No, I wouldn't either. You know? And by the way, the last thing I do every night, no matter which home I'm in, is I prowl around the house, make sure every window and every door is locked.
Well, you've got iron bars on your front door.
No, I haven't. I've got a gate.
You've got a prison door.
It's not a prison
door on the front of your house.
It's white. It's immaculately...
Yeah, but it's iron bars, isn't it?
Immaculately designed flowers, white flowers.
Immaculate, is it?
Immaculate,
really?
Immaculate, yeah. And it's very...
But it's an iron door.
Very tasteful.
Isn't it?
It's a gate. It's a gate, Mike. People have gates in front of their houses.
Yeah, but it's not outside. It's an indoor corridor.
Well, it might be an indoor corridor, but it's an esplanade.
Well, has anybody else on the corridor got an iron gate?
I don't know, because I haven't gone to look, have I? I don't go around.
Well, you walk down a corridor to get to your flat.
No, I don't. I walk in through a door and straight up into the fourth floor where I live, and then up the stairs, and that's me. Other things that people do, right? Other things that people do.
Does this include the sort of dangerous things that they do, like bungee jumping and all that kind of stuff?
No, it's just day-to-day risks that people do to try and titillate their sort of nervous system. So leaving windows open in an empty house when they go out.
That's bonkers.
To see whether.
But surely, I mean, say for example something did happen and there was a crime committed, your car got stolen under those circumstances, or your house got burgled. And if you said, well, I left the window open, wouldn't you get no insurance?
Apparently you don't admit to it. Apparently
that's another risk. You go to prison for that.
Exactly. And now, guess what the other one is?
Right.
Trying to drive as far as you possibly can with your petrol light showing no petrol.
No.
I mean,
I think this is for people. This is for people unlike you and I who've led very dull lives. I mean, I've had plenty of excitement in my life.
Exactly.
And I've been plenty of situations which I would rather have not been in, which are quite dangerous.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't particularly want to reenact it. I never want to run out. I've never run out of petrol in my life, and I don't intend to start now.
No, I don't either. These people are crazy. The other things they do are... I don't know why. This is what they do. They book a holiday knowing they can't pay for it. I mean, why would you do that?
Well, we know lots of people like that.
Well, we know lots of people who buy things they can't pay for. But the trouble is, you see, these days, this is what interests me. When I sometimes mix with some of our younger colleagues here at Talk Sport, right, and we go for a few sherbets after work or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is, I always pay in cash. Traditionally, I've always liked to have, a few £100 in my pocket, a wedge.
Yeah,
why
are you telling people that now? That now if anybody sees you walking around the street, they might roll you for the money.
No,
you've just admitted on live national radio that you walk around with £300 in your pocket.
No, I didn't say that, did I?
That's what you just said.
I said, a wedge.
A wedge?
A wedge, yeah.
Well, a substantial amount of cash.
Well, whatever. Anyway. So if we go into a bar, I mean, usually I insist on buying all the drinks anyway.
Well, the problem with going into a bar with Anna Brazil, surely, is that when you get into the bar, even if you only buy one bottle of wine, you then get presented with a much larger bill, which is the one that's been sitting there for a while since the last time he was there.
May have been, but I mean, that doesn't make Al a bad person. He just has this system,
No, he just forgets to pay them sometimes.
In fact, actually, I remember walking into a hotel once at an annual sporting event to be asked by the guy, and hello, Mr. Barry. Listen, just before we get down to this year's business, could you settle last year's bar bill? It was, But anyway, what I'm saying is, the younger members of the TalkSport staff, if they do get round to buying a drink, I'm not saying that they don't offer, they do on a regular basis, but we're lucky enough to perhaps be a little bit more prosperous because we've been around longer, they always offer up a credit card. Always. Yeah. And these days, particularly as you can touch your credit card on what you call it? A toucher.
What do you mean, a contact?
You just put it on the, that machine where you stick your card in.
Yeah.
These days, you can just touch your card on it.
Yeah, isn't that contactless or something?
Or something like that, yeah. And the point is, they can just keep on buying drinks like that and that and that. And I think that's why they get themselves into terrible financial problems. Because if you can't see how much money's disappearing out of your pocket every time you drink a large glass of Pinot Grigio at £7.50 a glass, you're going to soon find yourself in Carey Street.
In bad places, That's a phrase I haven't heard for a long time. I should explain, and that's where the bankruptcy court is, because people wouldn't know that.
It's not only where the bankruptcy court is, it's where there is a higher volume of Rolls Royces from bankrupts who come there to declare their bankruptcy than anywhere else in London.
I can imagine. It's that time, though, look into the light, because Winners and Losers is coming up next on Talk Sport.
Talk Sport.
And it's in!
A diving header at the end of a 50-yard run.
From the root to the tip.
Talk Sport.
Now it's time for Winners and Losers. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two mics, and it is that time of the week when we have the weekly... what could only be described as joust, I suppose, between Mr. Mike Parry and Mr. Toby Gillies. Toby has come close a couple of times, but so far still has no wins in the win column, I'm afraid.
Today's my day. I'm confident.
You look confident for some reason.
I've worked very hard on this today, and I'm convinced I've got 6 answers that you will like all of them. And surely that'll be enough to give me a victory.
Right. OK, well, if you're feeling so confident, I'm going to let Mr. Parry go first. Okay. So, Mr. Parry, would you like to give us your 3 losers of the weekend, please?
3 losers?
Yeah.
Right, OK. The first loser of the weekend, without a shadow of a doubt, what's his name? Stuart Lancaster.
Stuart Lancaster?
Yeah, the England rugby boss who didn't make
Sean
it.
Lancaster?
I don't know who Sean Lancaster is, but I said Stuart Lancaster. Okay. I said for sure...
Sean Lancaster used to work with us.
Actually, yeah. For sure, she married some photographer.
She did.
Yeah, Stuart Lancaster, because, you see, it doesn't matter how close you get. A miss is as good as a mile.
Yeah.
And Stuart Lancaster's a loser because he didn't win the championship.
Right. It's true.
And he's not going to win the championship. He's not going to win the World Cup. Yeah. Why is this guy still in a job?
Well, it's a very good question.
Because they gave him a contract before the World Cup turned up.
Well, it's mad. Now, the second loser is a guy called Stephen Fletcher.
Stephen Lancaster.
Sorry, Stephen Fletcher. Stephen Fletcher. You know Stephen
Who's
Fletcher
Stephen
is?
Lancaster?
He's nobody.
Right. Maybe you know Sean Lancaster.
Neither is Stephen Fletcher. Do you know who Stephen Fletcher is?
Stephen Fletcher.
Do you know Stephen Fletcher is?
Stephen Fletcher. I know someone called Stephen Fletcher.
Stephen Fletcher is a Sunderland striker.
I wasn't thinking of him.
He scored 7 goals in 2 seasons at Sunderland, right?
Sounds like more than
and
I
he's
thought
flaunting to the fans a £260,000 Lamborghini, on his driveway. In the shadow of a £160,000 baby Bentley behind it. That's a total of £400,000 worth of cars, for which you have to earn nearly £1 million in footballers' salaries. Yeah. He earns £40,000 a week. Yeah. Talk about a loser of all time. This is at a club Sunderland.
Surely he's a winner. You talk about people making a success of their lives.
No.
He's made a success of his life. He's got a Lamborghini and a Bentley.
No, he's a loser. And he's a loser because does he know what his self-worth is all about and what the value he is to Sunderland Football Club and all those fans? The trouble with Sunderland, you see...
do you think people really sit around not thinking that footballers have Lamborghinis and Bentleys?
Well, I'm sorry, but to flaunt it like that, a £260,000 Lamborghini is just utterly loserness.
But he didn't flaunt it, though. Was the picture not released by the people that sold him the car?
Well, he's posed in front of his own house, in front of the car.
To be honest, he sounds like a loser because a Premier League footballer on only 40 grand a week isn't very good, is it? That's true.
But the other point is that, you see, trouble with Sunderland is they are potentially a big club, but they're in such an unfashionable area, nobody wants to go and play there. And the third loser, and I'm sorry
is he called Lancaster as well?
No. Third loser... Unfortunately, after Bournemouth's results on Saturday, is me.
You?
I'm afraid it is.
Blimey.
Because I'm going to have to jump off that Bournemouth pier into that icy cold English Channel because it looks like Bournemouth are going to get promoted. And I said I would if they did because I was convinced they wouldn't.
Tremendous. Well, I see if you've got 3 that can batter those. That is a big one to beat.
That is. OK.
Go on then.
Well, I'll start with the Scottish Championship.
Yes.
Because at the end of last season, when Hibs and Hearts were relegated and Rangers were promoted, we said the Championship was going to be more exciting than the Premiership. This weekend, Hearts were promoted as champions.
Yes.
We haven't even had the clocks going forward yet. They're 23 points ahead of Hibs, 26 ahead of Rangers. They've lost 1 and won 25 of 29. We thought it was going to be a great boost to Scottish football, but it's worse than a top flight with only one of the old firm.
True.
Big disaster for the Scottish Championship.
OK.
My second loser of the weekend, cricket sledging.
Right.
It is the beginning of the end for this fine art in sport.
Yeah.
And that is because of the club cricket final in New Zealand between Greytown Cricket Club and their opponents Lansdowne.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard about this
I haven't
story.
heard of either of those people.
Greytown Cricket Club refused to carry on, citing bullying from their opponents. They say their players were faced with an intolerable level of personal abuse. Some of their players were crying, and they were chasing 131, but they only had 4 wickets remaining. So I wonder whether it was something to do with the scoreline rather than the sledging. But that's the beginning of the end for sledging when your team can cry off
that, we'll have to say.
because of it. OK, well, my final one is all of Liverpool's players' mums.
Yeah.
Now, you may have heard about this story, but it's become clear from a certain Liverpool player, a young Teixeira, who's on loan currently at Brighton and Hove Albion from Liverpool.
Is he from a non-EU country?
He's not. He's Portuguese.
There you go.
He's during the title run-in, he says, we had team meetings before the bus left for the stadium. This was obviously last season. Brendan Rodgers...
You can't have this if it's last season. It's supposed to be this weekend.
Yes, but it's emerged this weekend. This story has emerged this weekend.
I don't believe the story anyway, Frank.
Brendan Rodgers,
that the mothers were lecturing the boys
used to read out a letter from each player's mother
You've been duped.
in order to inspire the team to victories.
I'm not having
now,
it.
they failed miserably, obviously, these letters.
Anybody could tell you anything and you'd
and
believe
therefore, the Liverpool players' mothers are the losers of the weekend.
Well, I think, as you suspected, I can't see a bigger loser this weekend than Mike Parry.
No,
I mean, frankly, if he put his name forward every week...
Does that mean he's actually going to lose?
That means he's going to get a point for getting loser
so
of the weekend.
he wins for being a loser.
He does. Let's see what we get for the winners.
Mario Balotelli.
Okay.
Because as we all saw, he had to be pulled away from a confrontation with Chris Smalling in the game against Manchester United. But he's gone on Facebook afterwards to thank them. He said, besides all our efforts and the fact that the game didn't go our way, one thing was very clear. I wasn't alone on the pitch. You'll never walk alone. He's finally understanding what it's like to be a Liverpool player.
Yeah,
and the fans will appreciate him for it.
Well,
and
he's lost, hasn't he, though?
Well, he's proven himself to be magnanimous in defeat and to accept when he's doing the wrong. And he was shown right by the Liverpool fans.
I'm amazed that anybody's allowed fans to be involved in a football match. I think it's an astonishing situation, which nobody's talked about because Steven Gerrard's kind of overshadowed it all. Well, let's have your second one.
My second one is Steven Gerrard.
Okay.
Steven Gerrard.
He's a winner, is he?
He is a winner. Mad? Because he clearly
taking some kind of strange hallucinogenic
mind-bending drugs. Be on the mind-bending drugs.
If you listen to my reasoning, you'll hear this.
All right.
This was all
reasoning. You'll have to be quick.
Clearly planned.
Reasoning of an imbecile.
Well, if you let me talk, I'll do so. We all know how difficult it can be to move, even just from one area to another, a few miles apart.
Yeah.
The logistics of moving to America, though, when you're a full-time athlete, is a nightmare. How do you find a house? How do you know what's going on? What you do, you get yourself a week off by retiring from international, so you got the international break, and then 3 more weeks before your next game by getting sent off. Yeah. He's got a month to go to the States and sort out his new life. That makes him a big winner.
To do it for him.
No, because he wants to see the house that he's going to buy.
I don't think he even wants to go. Let's have your third one, though.
Okay, my third and final one, this is going to win it for me, is the Rugby Football League.
Yeah.
Because you may have seen over the weekend that when Fui Moi Moi scored his first try for Lee Centurions in their Challenge Cup game with London Broncos, his celebration was not just to leap into the crowd, but he ran all the way through the crowd to the top of the stand.
Should have been arrested.
Dancing and jigging with joy.
Half a point off you, keep interrupting.
And with all the fans who lapped it up. And if that was football, you'd get booked or maybe even worse. And I just want to say well done to the Rugby Football League for letting the players and fans mix and for showing once and for all that it's anything but dangerous to let it happen.
Interesting times. Okay, well, I quite like that one, actually.
Good.
So, Mr. Parry, what are your winners of the weekend then?
Well, the obvious one, the most obvious one, Aaron Lennon scored his first goal for Everton. Aaron Lennon.
You mean Aaron Lennon?
Aaron Lennon.
Yeah. Aaron.
He scored his first goal for Everton right after the loan deal was set up brilliantly by Roberto Martinez, and it paid off. It paid.
Lose one of your best players because of it.
It was Everton's winning goal in a crucial game.
All right.
Right, the second one, Harry Styles, because as a result of the boy Dane copping out of... what are you laughing at? Well, he loses a point for interference.
No, he doesn't. You've been interfering as well, but I will take half a point off
the other guy in 1D. Zane. The other guy,
Zane Lancaster, I think his name is, isn't it? Zane Lancaster.
No. He's allegedly got psychological problems. He's copped out. That means now that 1D will break up completely and Harry Styles will become the world's biggest solo recording star, without a shadow of a doubt. And the third one, James Corden, conquered American TV last night in California. It was his first show, the late show that he went over there to do. Everybody's going to pan him. He turned out to be brilliant. So I'm proud of him as a Briton.
Well,
He's
I think
a winner.
you've got to give it a bit longer than one night because you know how these things can work out.
Sorry, you make your initial impact.
Yeah,
I know people who've seen it, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, Piers has reviewed it already, hasn't he?
Yeah,
that's what you saw it. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not sure what we can have that because here's what I think I'm going to do.
Rugby Football League.
No. He should have been arrested for endangering the crowd.
I like the Rugby Football League one. So
another draw.
Here's what I'm going to do. Well, it looks like a draw. However, I can remove half a point from Mr. Parry for breaking the rules that we set last week. Hang on.
What about his interference?
Well, no, because we said last week you're not supposed to insult him, right?
So I didn't insult.
So you did. Yeah, you did. You called him a bad name.
No, I didn't.
You called him an imbecile.
Well, that's not a bad name. That's a factual observation.
Yes! So I think it means, does it not, that Toby has won. Yes. Oh no! Hang on! Don't damage. No, I'm just being reminded actually from the guys behind the glass that you had a point removed before we started the game with your suggestion that Gershwin was classical music.
Well, Rhapsody in Blue. I'd like to read you something here.
No, you started with -1.
It's a 1924 musical composition by American composer George Gershwin for solo piano and jazz band, which combines elements of classical music with jazz-influenced effects.
I've
won by half a point.
Classical music.
You just said jazz band.
Yeah, but classical music.
No, it's not classical
music.
Call
me the half-point victor.
I've spent many hours. I've spent many hours at the Royal Academy of Music. So I'm afraid you've lost again because Mike Parry has won by half a point. It's a staggering comeback by Mr. Parry.
Again.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you next week.
Toby.
We are the Two Mics, and there will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on this morning, of course. Keep looking out at the Two Mics, and you will find it there. It's on iTunes, of course, as well. Lots more for us to do, Mr. Parry, before the witching hour. Did you see that story in the papers this morning about Wayne Rooney? Apparently it says that he fires up Manchester United's Spanish contingent by swearing at them in their own language.
I know, yeah.
It's a strange thing.
You mean in Spanish?
Yeah, in Spanish.
Do you know any Spanish swear words?
I do, actually, yeah.
Oh,
but I don't want to say them because I once wanted to say a Spanish swear word on the air and I was advised not to because we might have a lot of Spanish listeners who might be offended by it.
Well, you know.
But there's one particular word which was when I went to El Clasico in the Nou Camp. Every time Ronaldo got the ball, the entire 95,000 people just shouted this one word at him.
Really?
And I imagine that's one of the words that is used.
Oh, well, we don't know.
It's a short four-letter word.
We don't know too much about that, do we? I mean...
But it shows you Wayne Rooney's becoming a kind of Renaissance man, as you've always said.
Oh, no, I mean, people often accuse Wayne Rooney of not being able to speak English, let alone Spanish, you know, and they're always having a go like that. By the way, why do women columnists, you know, in newspapers, you know, people, colleagues of ours, why are they always so hateful about other women? Because that Amanda
that's
Platel...
one of the things they get paid to do, isn't it?
But that Amanda Platel, I mean, she'll have a go at anybody, and funny enough, you mentioned Wayne Rooney, she had a go at Colleen Rooney.
Does she?
You know, she's going on about some thing she'd seen, some fashion show or something like that, and she had to make this bitchy, horrible comment. Here it is, got here. I remember seeing it. It was something to do with...
Well, this is one of the things that feminists often rail about, isn't it? Because, you know, they say it's bad enough that women get, you know, slated and
by men.
And objectified by men. But actually, it happens more and more from other women.
Yeah, have you seen that thing about some girls in some new West End show? She's got a very thin waist.
Oh, yeah.
And people are saying, right, dodging the debate over the minuscule waist of his leading lady, Cinderella... Director Kenneth Branagh insists his modern-day heroine empowers young girls.
Oh,
really?
This is the Cinderella film,
Yeah, the Cinderella, empowers young girls. Really, says Amanda Platel. It's the story of a lowly nobody who squeezes herself into a pretty frock to pull a man who can rescue her from poverty. Not much female emancipation there, Ken. More like Colleen Rooney's life story. I mean, that's just horrible, isn't it?
That's very unnecessary,
horrible,
isn't it?
Nasty, bitchy stuff, you know.
Yeah, but that's what they thrive on, isn't it?
Yeah, they do. The Carol Malone, right, she's another female
columnist. She's an old friend of yours, isn't she?
She's an old friend of mine, that's right, yeah.
As you revealed on another show.
Yes, indeed, that's right. She says...
she's not on the internal monitor again, is she?
No, she's not on the internal monitor. Kelly Brook, of course, is now trying...
she's in some show in America,
She's in some show in America in which she has to exemplify her curvaceous figure and all this kind of stuff.
Well, she has to act, though.
And Carol Malone says of her, Kelly Brook's new US sitcom has been slated by critics who said its stars were irritating and wooden. Bless her. Kelly's a nice girl, but when has her acting ever been anything else but?
Right.
I mean, that's, you know, women always having a go at each other.
No, I know.
Attacking other women. Hey,
well,
listen.
I suppose if they didn't do that, I mean, what else would they write about?
Well, it's a good point. It's a good question. Do you remember Bamba Gascoigne?
I do remember Bamba Gascoigne. He used to do University Challenge.
And you always...
Do you know when I used to watch University Challenge, when I first saw it, I used to think that the two sets of contestants, panellists,
sat on top of each other.
Did you think that?
Well, I suppose I might have done when I was a kid. Yeah.
I just assumed that was the set. Do you know? And I was like, I wonder if they got stairs up the back or up the side.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of game shows where people did sit in rows like that. You know, things,
Celebrity Squares
and all that sort of rubbish and all that.
I think that's still on, isn't it?
I think it is still on. Yeah. And do you know, in those days when we were kids watching that, people like David Mellor, you know, the famously chief man-eating politician.
And Chelsea fan.
Yeah, and Chelsea fan, with students in those sort of days, and they're in them. But anyway, look, really nice. Have you ever been left anything in a will?
No, I haven't, and it's much to my eternal regret. And my father died pretty much not penniless, but I mean, he didn't have any money.
Yeah, but anything would have gone to your mother anyway.
Well, he would have done. Yeah. But in fact, he didn't have anything. I mean, he didn't even leave enough to pay for a funeral.
Oh, is that
Which,
right?
by the way, I meant to ask you. You see that story I tweeted out a bit earlier today or yesterday about the guy who threw a wake for himself on the grounds that he decided that he wanted to be around to enjoy it.
So nobody else is going to pay for it.
Well, rather than pay for everybody else to have a drink, he said, "I'm going to have a wake now while I'm still alive."
Oh, right.
And somebody responded with the sort of thing that you would do.
Well, listen. I mean, we could virtually have a wake every day and call it a wake, couldn't we? Just having a drink. Except you and I now are very disciplined by the hours we work, which is a good thing.
It is a
very good thing.
No, but I mean, I've never been left out. I mean, my mother, because she's probably got more things around the house to leave me. I mean, my dad, funnily enough, because he was getting a bit sort of senile.
Yeah.
He would kind of start giving things away. In fact, he used to give me presents at Christmas time that I'd given him. 10 years ago, like a book. He'd give me back a book that I'd given him.
Well, that's all right.
You're not interested in my stories about
I am.
I can hear that tone of your voice. Yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
I love my father very much, and all you do is denigrate him and talk about him as if he's some kind of mad old fool.
Well, that's how you used to describe him to me all the time.
Absolute rubbish.
An eccentric old git you used to call him and all this sort of stuff.
Absolute rubbish, no.
Anyway, the reason we're talking about this is, you won't believe this, but Bamba Gascoigne has suddenly been told he's been left a £10 million house by a distant relative.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a distant relative who's sort of might have been his godmother, but he's not sure.
Oh, right.
It says here, Bamba Gascoigne, the former University Challenge quizmaster, was a tricky start for 10 of his own to solve after he was accidentally inheriting a £10 million stately home.
Wow.
West Horsley Place near Leatherhead, Surrey. It's not far from me.
So if it's a stately home, it might be one of those that will cost more to keep up than to maybe just sell it.
Belonged to his aunt and godmother, the Duchess of Roxburgh, who was one of the train bearers for Queen Elizabeth at the coronation in 1937.
Wow.
The 50-room house, which has its roots in the 11th century, has been visited by royalty and was owned by Sir Walter Raleigh.
How extraordinary.
I mean, isn't that amazing?
That's pretty. Who was the Duke of Roxburgh? The Duke of Roxburgh was somebody famous, wasn't it?
Duke of Roxburgh. He was in a battle, wasn't he?
I don't know. Well, I mean, maybe the more recent one. I'm thinking, I think there's a place... is Roxburgh not in the sort of Scottish borders?
Yeah, Scottish Highlands.
I played golf there. In the borders.
Yeah. It says here, Mr. Gascoigne is now 80. That's Bamba Gascoigne.
Yeah.
God, I remember him so well. Only found out he'd been left the property when he was contacted by a solicitor after the death of his aunt last year. He's now embarked on an interesting late-in-life project. Get this. On first visit to the house, he went to see what was inside it and found treasures worth £2.2 million.
Blimey.
Jewellery, paintings, furniture, artefacts. And they're all going to be sold through Sotheby's.
Well,
Isn't that amazing?
Well, either that or somebody's going to go around and rob them.
Yeah,
now that they've found out what's in there.
Yeah.
Now, listen, I've got this text. I don't really want to read it out, but I should in the purposes of fairness.
Okay.
This is from Lee in South Wales.
Right.
Which is quite clever. How many people does it take to change a light bulb at Talk Sport? 2, Mike Parry to screw it in and Mike Graham to firmly fix it.
What?
I think they're suggesting that the winners and losers have been fixed.
Fixed, yeah, I see what you mean, yeah.
By the way, I should remind you, so that you can do your research, you chose as this week's quiz subject British politics from 1975 to now.
That's right.
All right, just so that we're clear.
I have no problem with that whatsoever.
All right, good.
And by the way, I keep a very, very close eye on the answers because they will be of a technical nature, and I'm an expert.
I know you are.
I am an expert.
I'm sure
you're
you are.
not, and you're not.
I'm sure you are.
Hey, just talking about houses and things. Seriously, I've got to get this in before we go.
Yeah, go on.
David Copperfield, the magician.
David Copperfield.
Yeah. You know where we used to live in Manhattan? He had a fantasy pool on top of a 30-storey high building.
Right. What, just to himself?
Yeah, it was his in the penthouse.
Yeah.
It leaked, and it's gone through all 30 floors.
Oh.
Yeah.
Blimey, that's going to cost a few dollars, isn't it?
Lucius is now dealing with the fallout from another vanishing act, the disappearance of all the water from the swimming pool atop his penthouse. Sorry, it's not 30 floors. On the 57th floor.
57 floors?
Of a glass and steel skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan.
Are you sure it's David Copperfield, Nick?
Yeah.
You sure you haven't got a different one?
No, the magician David Copperfield has built his career on an ability to make large bodies disappear. This has disappeared altogether.
Blimey.
It sloshed through more than 30 stories of prime Manhattan real estate. His housekeeper, he's got one as well, look, called on March the 8th.
Yeah, but I think his roof terrace is probably slightly better than yours.
Yeah, said a spokesman and said there's a flood here. The cause appeared to be a malfunctioning pump.
That's bad news, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's also happening around lots of parts of what you might call Millionaires Row.
Right.
Although practically every street now in London is Millionaires
Row.
Yeah,
it is, yeah.
But, loads of people are digging down to excavate
basements,
the basement. But more than the basement, I mean, some of these footballers, I think Frank Lampard's involved in one of these, isn't he? Where he's digging down sort of about 3 floors to get, a
swimming
pool put in, a cinema and all that.
That's right.
But they're damaging so much of the foundations of all the other houses. And people are starting to now think that their houses are going to
collapse and all that.
And it's a real problem.
Well, our old mate Matthew, what's his name? Does that show on Channel 5 mid-morning? Matthew Wright. Matthew Wright.
Yeah. The Matthew Wright Show, it's called.
Is it called
That's
Matthew Wright Show?
It's easy to remember.
Yeah, I read a piece by him. One of his neighbours did it, and it cost him over 2.5 years of complete and utter nightmarish noise, chaos, vibrations, worries about their own house. It's a terrible blight on...
2.5 years is going to be nothing compared to how long it's going to take you to sort out your roof garden.
What? No, it's
2.5
not.
years.
No, it'll be done soon. Yeah, I've got a plan.
We'll get an update from you tomorrow.
Got a plan.
We've got lots more to do. Mr. Parry, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you later on tonight. Tonight, of course, it's Ask Porky. So if you've got any questions for Mr. Parry, you can start tweeting them in now, and we will save them
welcome. You're welcome. I will solve your problems.
He will solve your problems. He's here to help, of course, on a Tuesday.
I am.
And so it could be a romantic problem, it could be a business problem, it could be a bit of advice you might want for your career. Psychological problems, he can help with those.
Physical.
Incredible, an incredible sort of span of knowledge that he's got.
Hey, Ryan 10 Dochat